great Odin's raven.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
This is ridiculous. Okay, I'll go.
Hello and welcome to the FilmPulse.net podcast. This is episode number 58. My name is Adam. Today I'm joined by Kevin. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing all right.
This week we have two interviews lined up. First, we're going to be speaking with Tony Blod, the director of ROVER, which is our Kickstart Sunday project from last week, which just got its funding successfully. So this will be the first interview we do with someone that actually...
I was going to say.
Yeah, they got their funding finished before we did the interview. Then we'll be speaking with directors Keir Politz and Damon Maulucci about their upcoming film DETONATOR. Then we'll be discussing part 2 of our South by Southwest 2013 coverage. And finally, we'll be going over this week's movie predictions and DVD and Blu Ray releases. But first, I wanted to go over an email that we got after last week's episode. I love when we get feedback. And mostly we get good feedback, but I got this email and I felt it was necessary to...
Is this our first negative feedback? Like legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, there have been kind of constructive criticisms here and there, but nothing like this. The subject of this email says, "Wake the fuck up."
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm quoting here, quote, "Are you guys doping before your podcasts? Why is there always one of you who complains about being tired at the top of the show? Is this an excuse to not be thoughtful or incisive in your reviews? That's kind of how it strikes me. And what's up with the really lethargic guy from your last episode? I did not find his dumb act charming at all. What I'm not looking for in a film podcast is review telling me that a film sucked or was awesome. I would prefer insight, intelligence, and passion. Maybe I'm in the minority. My 2 cents. So let me just...
Let's first start off with the lethargic guy.
Yeah, let me just... I want to clarify some things because of this email. I'm not, angry because of this email or anything like that, but I just thought that it would be good to explain some things. First, the lethargic guy, that's Ryan. Those of you that listen to the show know that we do another show called Ryan Watches a Movie, and occasionally we'll have him on this show as well. Ryan is in a wheelchair and has a neurological disease that prevents him from speaking correctly. It's not that he's... I mean, maybe he is a little lethargic regardless.
A little bit. I mean, South by Southwest was pretty taxing.
That was actually my next point was... Yes, we were complaining about being tired last week, and in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have done that. It was unprofessional, but
I do want to state again, I am not professional.
No.
So when I'm tired, I'm going to tell you I'm fucking tired, and I don't care what you think.
When I went back, after I got this email, I did go back and listen to the episode, and yeah, it was not one of our best episodes.
I'd also got to say, I can't remember what films we talked about in the first, because everything was like a blur.
Yeah, it was the Friday and Saturday stuff, I believe, that we discussed. But I mean, it wasn't a good episode. And also, when we talk about movies on the podcast, a lot of times it's movies that we also reviewed on the site, and we get into more detail on the site. Usually, we keep things brief on the show, just for the sake of cramming everything into the amount of time we have. So I just wanted to get that out there, maybe do some clarification.
I would agree with sometimes we're not as in depth with films.
No, especially when we do the what we've been watching. But I mean, we can't, if we're talking about 14 movies, we got to kind of speed it along, And
it depends on what the movie is. Upstream Color, I really don't want to say too much.
Well,
I don't want to give anything away, really.
Yeah, and also with the South by and any festival coverage that we do, we're not going to be getting super in-depth because we know that a lot of people haven't seen these movies yet. And when those movies come out, we'll probably be doing an episode where we do get more in-depth. I know that we're going to be doing a Spring Breakers one.
But it's not a dumb act, by the way.
No, it's not a dumb act. It's just Ryan being Ryan. So just thought there'd be some clarification there. We do... read every email that comes in and take everything to heart. I mean, Maybe just don't be so mean about it next time. Okay, let's go ahead and dive right into our first interview of the day. We had a chance to have a chat with Tony Blod, the director of an upcoming film called ROVER, which just got funded on Kickstarter. So let's just give that a listen. Why don't you tell the listeners first a little bit about yourself and maybe your background in film?
I am a recent college grad. I graduated in 2011 from University of UCSB, which is Santa Barbara, with a degree in film and media studies. And then I moved to New York City. I moved there summer of 2011. Last winter, I came across this church in Bushwick with a friend of mine when we started leasing it for as an event space in an adjoined schoolroom as artist studios. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to make a film there, and then kind of just waited until I had made enough money from throwing the parties and having events and leasing out the studios until I had like a decent enough budget, and then just sort of made the script based around what I had.
I have a friend that lives in Bushwick. Whereabouts is this church?
It's off the Myrtle Broadway JMZ stop. It's on Bushwick and Jefferson.
Oh, okay. So let's talk a little bit about the movie. Maybe you can describe kind of the basic plot of the movie without giving too much away.
Sure. Okay. So essentially, we come into a story about a cult. Not necessarily clear at the beginning, and they've decided that they're going to make a movie about kind of their foundation myth. At this point now, there's only 5 members in the cult. It's sort of like it's like one of those big cults, but I pictured it like, 10 years later after people sort of realized that it was kind of a little too hokey, a little too weird, and people started leaving. So it's sort of like a sad cult that's on its way out, and it's on its last legs. And anyway, their current leader comes up with this idea to kind of boost morale. And so to do that, they hire this outside director, this kind of young kid, to come in and be the director. And from there, they just start making this film. And throughout the film, the director, this kid, kind of gets to know them a little bit better, and they sort of start to kind of grow together as a team. And then, I'll say this, the goal of the cult the whole time is to make this pilgrimage, this like mission to Venus, which by the end of they've been waiting for years and years pretty much to like receive a signal to make this happen. And finally, towards the end of the movie, the signal is received and plans are made for their mission to Venus. I don't want to kind of give away too much about it, but I'll just leave it as a mission, I guess.
It seems like it's one of those, and this is what really drew me into the project to begin with, but it seems like one of those, it's like a movie within a movie within a movie, like that type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely is, and just graphically we get into that with, like, we shot the majority of it on red, so we have the 2:3:5 aspect ratio there, and then when we go into their film, it's 16:9, shot that on an HPX, and then there's even scenes of their film when they're making their own kind of like self-help tapes within the film, and then we go to 4:3, it's like a VHS tape, so it's sort of it really does get kind of confusing, and that's really my favorite part about the film, is just the confusion between, we never really know, are these things happening in the film, are they happening in real life, is the film a mirror to real life, or are these things actually happening? There's a lot of ambiguity in it, and that's really what I liked about it.
Yeah, that's what really drew me in to begin with. So the reason that we're talking is because you had a Kickstarter campaign, and this was for post-production funding, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So you funded almost the entire movie through hosting like these parties and stuff at the church where the movie takes place?
Exactly. We rented out all these school classrooms as artist studios. We had concerts, art shows, film sets. We had the cast of the crew for Girls shot down the street and did holding for 2 days in the church, which really helped. And we've had photo shoots, fashion shoots, music videos, just pretty much everything, you name it. We even had like a wedding there, surprisingly enough.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're the first person that we talked to that actually got successful funding through Kickstarter before we did the interview.
Oh yeah, okay.
So normally when we do these interviews, it's before the campaign has ended. So with that with that in mind, now that you have your successful funding, are you just going to jump right into using that funding for some of these post-production things? Like, how does it work? You have a successful Kickstarter fund. Did you already get the money for that?
I think that the money arrives in the account in like a couple days. It's like verified through Amazon payments or something like that. But yeah, we should have the money in a few days. Where we're at now is like we've already made all of our post-production deals more or less, with the exception of some music licensing. But like we have a VFX, or we have a colorist lined up for a rate. We have a sound designer lined up for a rate, and we have a composer as well. So we've already kind of agreed upon these terms, and then kind of based our Kickstart funding, or our goal, based on like what we thought we would have to pay all these people. So we will start spending the money soon. I'm just probably a few days out from finishing the edit to picture lock, and then we'll kind of just, hand it off to the sound designer and get him paid and start spending this money. And then the music licensing was really our biggest unknown in terms of how much we wanted to decide for our goal, but we're kind of on a good track, I think, in our licensing right now. So I think we should be fine.
Cool. So plans for the movie, like, do you have a tentative completion date?
I was trying to actually be locked picture before I left for South by Southwest last week, but that didn't happen. So hopefully I'll lock the picture maybe next week, and then I still have to do all the VFX. I mean, we'd like to get this thing done kind of by May, I think would be great.
And then do you plan on shopping this around festivals?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're definitely going to shop it around for those fall festivals.
Great. So if people want to find more about the movie, I take it, do you have a website set up for the movie?
We don't. We have a Facebook page for the movie. I've got a personal website that has some info about the movie, and then there's a lot of info on our Kickstarter page still.
And does those Kickstarter pages stay up for a while after the campaign's over? Yeah,
it'll stay up for as long as we want it to.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. That's cool. All right, the movie's Rover. Tony, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again, Tony, for taking some time to chat with us. The movie's Rover. Be on the lookout. Next up, we have a chat with directors Keir Politz and Damon Maulucci about their upcoming film, Detonator. Very excited about this one. So let's get right into that. So why don't we get started? Both of you guys, are you from Manayunk? Is that correct?
I'm not originally from Manayunk. I'm from a different neighborhood in Philadelphia called Longcrest, which is kind of over near Olney. But I live in Manayunk now. I have been here for 3 years. And I've actually been back in Philly probably for about 5. Damon and I went to graduate school together in New York. And since then, I moved down here for teaching opportunities.
Oh, okay.
And I'm actually living in Brooklyn by way of Hartford area, Connecticut, and Northampton, Massachusetts.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we're talking about the film Detonator. Why don't you guys just give us kind of a brief overview of what the film is all about?
So basically, it's about a guy who's sort of he's going through a transitional time in his life, and he's getting older, and he was the front man of a punk band in West Philly, in the West Philly punk scene, and he's just sort of settling down and embarking upon this new, more domestic version of his life, but he's fighting with it. He's battling with it, and just as they move into a house together, the woman who's the mother of his child, and just as that happens, this guy from his past who was in his band returns to his life and complicates things for him. So it's about him sort of reconciling these two. This past notion of himself with his present reality of having to be a father and having to take care of a child and trying to find a new interpretation of himself that allows him to do that. So really trying to find his voice in the current state that he's in.
Now, what brought you guys to this story? Were you guys into the punk scene in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I've always Yeah, I was on the radio in undergrad. I was on the radio. I had a radio show, and I always connected with some sides of punk music. And it was when I was younger, it was just there's something just very youthful about that music. It's very raw, and the messages and everything involved with that. So I always, it was always a part of my life. I wasn't a part of the West Philly punk scene, but it was actually, one thing that interests me is just showing these different sides of existence to an audience, that might not normally have access to it. And I was always interested by this scene in West Philly that I get, a lot of them identify themselves as kind of like crust punks. And they're just these sort of, they live in these old houses, these old West Philly kind of Victorian style row homes that are huge inside, and they put on these house shows. Mm-hmm. And I had a kid when I first started teaching. I did a class at University of the Arts, and one of my students, he was like this 19-year-old kid, and he was in a punk band, or he was kind of just starting out playing around with music, but he had put on over 100 shows, big shows, a couple few hundred kids in his living room. He put on over a couple hundred shows in his house. And I was just very intrigued by that, and I felt this connection to him personally. I just liked him, and he was just a good kid, and I just felt like he was trying to do something fun and interesting and inclusive. And so there was definitely something about that appealed to me. And then just also the side of something that Damon and I are experiencing ourselves, is trying to, lead a creative existence while getting older and having families, and, trying to be responsible and, make art and write and make movies and all that. So we're kind of dealing with that in a very real way in our lives. And, so I also felt that there was something interesting about the idea of, how punk ages. And you see these punk musicians that, mm-hmm. They're in their prime, and they're so they're just so connected to the world around them, and they're just living on the surface. And then they get a little bit older, and they all sort of they either become, they either evolve, or they become very cynical, or they sort of, they burn out. And, it's the age-old story. But I just like the idea of a guy who had this very strong voice, trying to figure out how it could mature and evolve, and how it can have it could exist in this adult life with adult responsibilities. Yeah, sorry.
Or could it exist? I think Keir and I talk a lot about our lives, and as we work together, and what he was talking about in a bigger picture way is kind of, how do you monetize a creative lifestyle and make it real for your life. And shout out
in order to continue doing it. Yeah.
Right. And a shout out to that student who definitely shaped kind of the energy as we were, doing drafts and going into pre-production, Tiny Ryan.
Yeah.
And again, pulling back out a little bit more, for me, I had a sibling that's about 8 years older than me. So I was attracted to the energy and the kind of DIY rough nature of punk, growing up a little bit, being exposed to that, and really early hip hop. Mm-hmm. That's always been a part of kind of my consciousness, and definitely informs the energy that we bring.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I was really into the punk scene too, and I think that's really an easy thing for young people to get into, especially when they're really angsty teens. And just going back briefly to what you were saying before, when you're into that scene, and you're into such a scene that's so aggressive and visceral and full of energy, when you get older, it seems like you either kind of get away from it and go to a little bit more of a traditional straight-laced existence, or you kind of stay stuck into that thing, trying to hold on. And it seems like that's kind of where your main characters go. You have, they're like polar opposites at this point, even though they kind of came up together.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you try to hold on, eventually you snap. It doesn't. It's not possible. And I think that was something that definitely interested us with these. The dynamic of these worlds, but just how specifically how we can render them in these distinct characters, and it just seemed like it was very there was a lot of potential for collision.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, this is your guys' first feature film, right? Now, you guys both made several shorts. Keir, I was able to check out your short film.
Oh, okay.
And it was fantastic, by the way, A Piece of America.
Thanks. Thank you. That
is available. I found it on a website somewhere.
Yeah, it was. It played at some festivals. It played at Clermont-Ferrand, and then it's now it's available on. It's called Culture Unplugged. Yep. It's like an international. And oddly, I thought it was just going to be up there for like a year. I mean, I made this film years ago when I was in grad school. I thought it was going to be up there for a year, and it's still up there from like 2007. So.
Yeah, that's where I found it, but it was really good. So, cool. When you guys jumped into this project, being your first feature, was that a big transition, or because you've been doing a few short films, was it kind of easy for you?
Well, I think Keir and I had been working together for probably about 8 years, but we didn't, call each other partners. And, we both have our own projects, but we kind of felt like we could get together and pool our resources and make something that was, maybe greater than the sum of its parts. On this particular project, Keir had the story idea about these two friends in conflict, which I could definitely relate to. I mean, it's also, it's about kind of dealing with who's real in your life and who's toxic. Mm-hmm. And them confronting this old scene, which we were kind of talking about earlier. And there's a militancy and a righteousness, sometimes that could be in that music scene that, I think you need to have in order to keep going on any endeavor that's not, kind of part of the norm. So we had both been working on each other's stories and helping each other out. And this one, we started writing it together. We were trying to get it into the hands of, I don't want to say his name, but a TV, somebody who was popular in TV drama series at the time, or he just got off of a huge show. And we had this.
Who had an interest in the project, yeah.
Yeah, we knew somebody, another TV actor who had been playing small roles, who was in his theater company, and he was like, "Yeah, this is a good story, and we think that you guys, if you guys can write it, I can get it to him." But he kind of gave us this deadline, and so Keir and I were always talking about what we were doing, and we ended up having to, write this thing, a first draft, in about 2 weeks. I think it was actually 16 days. But when he was talking about the project to me, we just started kind of jiving. And right then and there, it became something personal to both of us. And we wrote this thing really together, either in person or over this kind of, medium through mm-hmm. video chatting and conferencing, which by the way, we saw the value of like not making eye contact, and just doing voice and then needing some eye contact, because there's definitely.
Yeah. And just to elaborate on that, we both had projects that were stuttering forward, and it seemed like every time there was some development, things fell apart, and we felt like we were back at square one, and we were both counseling each other on this, and so we never really set out to co-direct. I mean, I think we were always open to co-writing things, but we never really set out to co-direct. But it just kind of happened that way, and we just wanted to do something that would be beneficial for the both of us, to get a first feature out there, and just knowing very well that there's no comparison to directing a feature film and what you learn from that. So mm-hmm. we just wanted to get that learning experience under our belt so that we could just get, jumpstart the process and not spend another 10 years inching along and being at the mercy of the industry and the scene that was, and specific actors or whatever.
Right,
we really did this in a very grassroots way, and shot a little teaser in the winter and used that to raise capital, and it was all small to medium private investors. And one of my close friends came on and really made the financial side of it happen. My friend David Giacovini, and he had no experience in the world of making movies. So this was something, he was a finance guy, so this was something that was new for him. But he came aboard and used, he actually has started his own financial business, his own mutual fund. So he basically took that knowledge and applied it to this, and helped us see this thing through.
And I think, back to just, we weren't completely powerless, but we had these stories we wanted to tell, and we were waiting for, we both kind of had our little stories of, almost being greenlit, quote unquote, whatever that means, and having funders that we barely know drop out, and having, actors cool with the story, and it just takes a long time. And so I think we, Keir, actually, I remember, Keir's wife was pregnant with Lorenzo, his first son. Shout out to Lorenzo, Keir. And
I'll tell him.
And yeah, thanks. And the storyline felt very personal to both of us, and we were like, let's make this happen, and let's stop waiting for this idea of like a lottery ticket and putting it into the hands of somebody else to tell us it's okay. And I think that's and the fact that we feel like strongly about these characters and we want to live with them. I think that allows us to wait however long it takes to get this out there. I mean, it's out there now, but to watch it, slowly build an audience, hopefully. And
yeah, well, let's actually talk about the fact that it's out there. So this premiered at CineQuest 23. That's right? That was its premiere.
Yes.
And
yep.
Where are we at now as far as distribution and getting this out there?
Well, yeah, it's interesting, and that's the thing, Adam and Kevin, is we made this film and with the idea of getting things moving forward, and we have no idea what that, we're sifting our way through this process as we go, and we've been in contact with people that have shown interest, and I mean, I think what we'd like to do is to continue screening it for a while, to continue doing screenings and playing some festivals and some more regional stuff, and taking advantage of the momentum of that to help us get our next project going. And I guess I don't want to speak for Damon too much, but my feeling is that the distribution is something, it's sort of like it's a long process, and it's something that hopefully will come as this unfolds. Oh, so yeah. I guess what I'm saying is we're not being overly aggressive with that at this point. We want to just find the right fit, and we just want to enjoy what this is for now, and not rush the business of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No,
yeah,
go
Adam.
ahead.
Oh, I was just, and Keir can always speak for me because we're usually on the same page. But I think just another thing to say would be, we're in the bigger picture. We're not going to discriminate against what the size of the screen. We see what kind of the direction this is going, and having just seen people, friends of ours making movies, and it takes like about 18 months, it seems, or a couple of years in the current state of things to get something on a known platform, that they can stream or get on demand. So we're definitely interested in that, and that's an interesting current ride that we're on.
Yeah, and also just like having fun with it and doing things like talking to you guys. Like I really, just from what I've seen of your site, I really like what you guys are doing. I think it's got its own voice. It's unique. I love what you're doing with Ryan. It's kind of got like a it's kind of got like a Carl Pilkington vibe to it. I don't know.
We've heard that.
But I like it, man. It's like it's its own thing, and I think that's what's going to make people come to that. And just like having a chance to talk to you guys, I mean, that to me is as much as valuable a part of the process as having it stream on whatever, Hulu or Amazon or Netflix or whatever.
Yeah.
Is Ryan gonna review our movie?
I doubt that.
We can have him.
Yeah, we can give it to him.
Ryan?
Yeah, we'll give it to him and see what he says.
See what kind of one-liner he comes back with.
I will say we did take him to a screening of Drinking Buddies, Joe Swanberg's Drinking Buddies at South by, and he really liked that. So
cool.
Yeah, he was laughing. He was laughing his ass off at that one.
Great. I'm excited. I haven't seen it, but I'm excited to see it because everything I've heard, it's just, I mean, obviously it's a lot bigger than most of the stuff that Joe's done. But I've just heard good things about it.
Oh yeah, it's really great. It's really great.
Cool.
Joe Swanberg plays a small role in this film.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
He's our buddy Larry, who we went to Columbia with for graduate school, who plays Sully, who plays the lead in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
has been in stuff with Joe, and we originally were looking to the character was an older gentleman, and but there's just something about it that just felt a little contrived, and we just thought we'd cast in a very different way, and we were just looking for somebody that had a presence and had could bring a little bit more nuance to that specific character and kind of crack it open a little bit. And I feel like I've seen Joe and stuff. I mean, actually, specifically, I don't know. Have you ever seen the film Quiet City?
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't even remember who directed it.
I think that's Katz, Aaron Katz.
Aaron Katz.
The guy that did Cold Weather.
Oh yeah.
And Joe had a small role in that, and I liked that film, and I actually liked what he did in that, because he made this smaller role interesting, and what Joe does in terms of the films that he makes is very different from what we're trying to do. I think what we're trying to do is a bit more of like a focused narrative, more of a aggressive character-driven narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But we have tremendous respect for this guy, and we like his films, and the fact that he's so prolific and that he's young and he's done so much, and he's doing it on his terms. I mean, there's something very respectable about that, and
yeah,
so
absolutely.
we just kind of connected with him, and it just worked out, and so I guess it's just through the network of connections you find people that are interesting, and
and they can lend something to a character, and that have the chops. You know, that's important.
And I thought his character was hilarious too. By the way,
Thanks. It was hilarious working with him. We had fun with it.
Did he try and ad-lib everything?
Yeah. I mean, he definitely brought his own style, like even little things like just wanting to wear black socks, and he just he brought his sensibility to it, and we appreciated that, because he did a lot with something that wasn't, didn't have a ton of screen time or space on the page. He made it something more than what we had written it as being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just briefly want to talk about the rest of the cast, because I don't want them to feel left out here. We already mentioned Lawrence Levine, who is Sully, the main character of the film. Yeah. And then we have Benjamin Ellis Fine. He's Mick. Now, he's been in several short films. Where did you find him? Because he was great for this role.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer too. Is he was perfect for the role, and Ben's done a lot of theater stuff in New York, and he's just been around for a while, and like he went to Interlochen, which is like a performing arts high school. It sounds like it's a pretty intense environment, and so he's been like living this life for a long time, and he's very, I often describe him as mercurial, and he's very different from the character of Mick in that Ben is a very thoughtful guy, and well, actually I shouldn't say that, because I think Mick is a thoughtful guy too, but I think Ben is a guy that he's very measured in a lot of ways, but he also has this, he's like, he has this tempest inside of him. He's always waiting to come out, and I think he just, Damon had known him for a little while through mutual friends, and had always said to me, like, this is the guy for this role. I mean, I see this guy taking this to another level, and then he sort of, he slowly convinced me, and then I had a good long conversation on the phone with Ben, and I was, entirely convinced that he could do it. But yeah,
he's a jester for sure, and I think that's, you put it well, Keir. I mean, we thought that he's going to push, all of us in terms of artistically and as his character, and he's going to make us have to step up our game, and having a strong kind of antagonist or antagonal character that you can feel for, I think that makes for a much better story. And, you know, it only increases the conflict and raises the stakes.
And I think that he's a character that a lot of people know. Like, when I saw this movie, I was like, oh, that's just like one of my friends, or this person that I used to be friends with. Like, a lot of people have that kind of friend or person in their life where they're just like, you're friends with them, they're nice, they're good people, but at the same time they kind of bring you down all the time.
No, I think that's just it, Adam. I think that, I don't know how old you guys are, but you get into your mid to late 20s, and you know, you have this time in your early 20s where you're like, I'm gonna be with this gang forever, and then you get into your late 20s and your 30s, and you start to get into your own life, your own adult life, and then you really start to see how these people fit in the world and in your own existence, and how they can't fit. And I feel like, you know, I've had a couple people in my life that were pretty important. Mm-hmm. And you just reach a point where you have a night with them, or you have a few hours with them, and you're just like, I can't see this person anymore. You know, it's impossible. You know, it's just not going to work. And I feel like, everybody can relate to that. And it's interesting because I think I was going to say I think it's the case with both men and women. There are people that will battle that until the end of their life. You know, they'll keep these very destructive personalities in their lives to their own detriment, and they'll just, you know, and I guess there's something respectable about that too. I don't know, but
and going back to the kind of idea of the scene, the music scene, and you know, how kind of intense, you know, kind of people's mutual feelings are, and being in a little bit of a bubble. You know, I feel like you know, Sully and Mick, their bond is so strong. They grew up together, and in that punk scene, they went to college. You know, that was their college. That was their transition into the first kind of stages of, you know, asserting who they were in the world, you know. And so that makes it extra strong when you're dealing with old people who are challenging, you know, they're throwing in your face things that you said, things that you stood for.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to mention, you got Robert Longstreet, the great Robert Longstreet, for this film. He plays a great character. I would also call him sort of an antagonist in this film as well.
Yeah, I think the idea with it, you know, is he's who we think the antagonist is, until it becomes very clear that he's not. And I think he actually says it at one point that. Right. But with him, it's like we wanted somebody who could play. You know, I thought it would be interesting to have, because it's a role that he hasn't really played, and I think he has this very menacing quality to him, but. I've never seen him play something that, you know, a character that is meant to be so threatening, so physically threatening and emotionally threatening. But I also think what he did is he brought, you know, because originally we were thinking, you know, this character is somebody like, you know, like Rollins. But our concern with casting an actor like Rollins would be that he would just eat the scenery. You know, he just wouldn't. And he wouldn't bring any humanity to this character. He would just make him this caricature of this old, you know, very political punk rock guy. And well, what Longstreet did is he brought like this level of sensitivity to this character, and you know, that's really what we were hoping to get from him.
Right. Like, I remember just watching, you know, him on the monitor and on set, and I mean, he just in his eyes, and he took this. You know, can I curse? Can I say shit kicker mentality?
Oh yeah.
On you know, character, and he basically made him you know, a scorned lover in some ways. And I think that's kind of the thing that keeps him more interesting than just a threat or a bad guy. Is just watching, you know, what does these relationships mean to him? Why is he? You know, and this was great about all our actors, you know, that they're all filmmakers and storytellers, and they're all, you know, we're getting into great conversations, or they're asking us like, why am I doing this? And if you know, forced us to get deeper and deeper and really figure out what's motivating, you know, this possibility that you're going to hurt this person, you're going to maim them in front of their family. And, you know, Robert definitely brought that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's exactly, you know, it's very much a love story. It's a love, in a lot of ways, it's a love triangle, and in order to play that, we needed to have actors that had that, had that capability, and had that depth to the performances that they could bring.
One final question for you guys. Who sang the song? Who was Detonator?
Yes.
That's great.
Well, it was actually the New Bomb Turks, who are a band early 90s.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, and Eric Davidson actually the lead singer of that band actually had a small role in the movie, and he had originally played Dutch in the teaser that we shot before we had Longstreet on board, and so that's the New Bomb Turks version of an old song, and the first time we heard that song, we were just like, first of all, it's an amazing song.
Mm-hmm.
The New Bomb Turks version of that song, we just love that band, and we feel like they embody the I think Adam, I think you said just like the visceral nature of not just punk music, but like punk performance.
Yeah.
And if you watch Eric Davidson perform, usually in like these small venues, I mean, he brings not just an energy, but just this passion to his performance that you just cannot look away from this guy. And we wanted this movie to have that. We didn't want this movie to be. We wanted this movie to be something that had the potential to have layers about relationships and about these personalities, but we also wanted it to feel explosive, or at least to have the potential for that. And we wanted the arrival of Mick to feel like it was tripping a wire.
Yeah.
And there was that emotional danger there, and we just felt like this band and this singer and performer just completely embodied that spirit. So yeah, that's really.
Well, I think the song was incredibly effective, and I think that everything that you just mentioned, I think you succeeded with the movie. So
thank you.
I want to thank both of you guys for taking some time to chat with us. The film is Detonator, and I believe you guys have a website up, right? Is it detonatormovie.com?
Detonatormovie.com, yeah.
And you can talk to us at Detonator Movie as well.
Okay, so go to
Twitter.
at Detonator Movie on Twitter, detonatormovie.com. Damon and Keir, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us, Kevin and Adam.
Thank you again to Keir and Damon for taking some time to talk with us. Detonator's the film. Make sure to be looking out for that one. All right, let's get into our talk about the second half of our South by Southwest films. Now, originally, I will say, full disclosure, we did record an entire episode that covered all of these, and after that email, I was pretty disheartened by the end result, and when I went back and listened to the second part, it was even worse.
I was gonna say, the way I remember it, the second one was very bad.
Yeah, it was terrible, so we just scrapped it. Let's just talk about this. Again, I will say we're just going to be brief with these movies because most of them are not out yet. So we're just going to give just our broad feelings about them. I'm not going to get into super detail on this.
Yeah, plus when we do not enjoy them, and this is a film festival where they don't have, distribution yet, you don't want to kill a film.
Yeah. We're not going to just destroy a film on the air, especially if it hasn't had a chance to, reach its audience or whatever. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Mitchell Altieri's Holy Ghost People.
And that's why I said that disclaimer.
Now, see, well, I actually like this more than you. I will say that it does have its flaws, but overall I enjoyed it. Basically, this is a film about a girl who is trying to rescue her sister, who falls into this church in the Appalachian Mountains that it's a snake handling church, more like a cult. I mean, I'd say it's more of a cult than a church, but I guess sometimes that line is blurred. And she employs the help of the local drunk to try to help her rescue her sister. Now, Mitchell Altieri is one half of the Butcher Brothers, who they've done movies like The Hamiltons and The Violent Kind. And although I always find their movies to be interesting story-wise, I always feel like their movies kind of like suffer on a technical level. Like they're just not quite up to snuff, but I think that they are getting better. And I think that Holy Ghost People is the best of what he has done as far as quality. However, there are issues with the movie. The acting is not very good. The special effects are pretty terrible.
Which is something that I was thinking about yesterday. Special effects. Why don't people use more, step away from the computer-generated special effects?
Yeah, like, I don't know why they opt in for the CG stuff when they can just easily use fake blood.
Yeah, and there's another scene involving rocks that has special effects. And I'm thinking, how hard is it to break up some bits of, like, Nerf material and just paint them to look like rocks?
Yeah. But that being said, there isn't a whole lot of CG in this movie. It's not like it's overly done. It's just like when it does happen, you can see it. Like it's kind of jarring when the CG does come into this movie, which is because they use real snakes in the movie too, but they add fake rattlers on them. And
yeah, I mean, it has so much promise.
Yeah,
and just like you said, I'm not really familiar with the Butcher Brothers like you are. You've seen the other films, and from the sounds of it just seems like they haven't quite gotten their footing yet.
Yeah, well, it is to note that this is just they split up. I think that they're each doing their own movie. I'm pretty sure that they both decided to make their own one separately. So this is just Mitchell of the Butcher Brothers, and I can't remember the other dude's name, but I think that he's going to be making his own movie as well. But either way, Holy Ghost People, that should be out soon. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but I'm sure it's going to get picked up.
Yeah, I think the other one is Phil Flores. Phil Flores is the other Butcher Brother.
Yeah. Moving on, Spring Breakers. Again, we're not going to get really deep into this because we're going to do an entire episode on Spring Breakers. We loved it so much. Everything about this movie is perfection. And if you're in a city where it's playing, please go see it. I think it gets a wider release next weekend. James Franco's best role that he's ever done.
Easily.
Incredible. The editing, the camera work, the use of the colors, it's a masterpiece.
I would say get ready for an overuse of look at all my shit. I think we're going to be hearing that a lot after this film comes out.
This is definitely a quotable film.
Yes, without a doubt.
I think that people are going to be quoting this movie for a long time. And it's well deserved. It's just an amazing film all around.
Yeah, definitely Corinne's most mature work, oddly enough, since the storyline and everything is so immature.
Yeah, and I think that it's also his most accessible work as well. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if I ever would have imagined a Harmony Korine film getting a wide release and yes. and having the stars like Selena Gomez.
Yeah, I think it still has Corinne's bizarreness, surrealism, just odd, like grotesque images. It still has all of that while being accessible some way. I don't know how he did it, but.
And I think that one thing that we said before, I think that people are going to like this for different reasons. Like there's going to be the college frat boy crowd that likes it because it's a movie about spring break and it shows a lot of nudity, and then fans of Harmony Korine or film fans are going to like it for completely different reasons and more like it for kind of the statement that it's making. Yeah,
just all of the film styles that he uses, like the camera work and everything, they're just at their highest level in this film. Everything's perfect.
And I would also like to mention it has an amazing soundtrack as well.
does have an amazing soundtrack, and there is a great scene involving Britney Spears' song.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Which, good God, that is amazing.
So definitely go out and see Spring Breakers as soon as it's playing in your area. You will not be disappointed. Then Ryan and I actually saw Rewind This, which is a documentary about VHS and goes over the history of VHS, kind of the resurgence of VHS, and it really gets into pretty much every aspect of VHS that you can imagine. And I found it incredibly interesting, and being a big fan of 80s films and the whole VHS culture that I guess is sort of formulating, I was a really big fan of this movie. Tons of interviews, hilarious interviews. So if you're into campy 80s videotapes and just that whole scene, this is an absolute must-see. But I think that it's also an important film. I believe in my review I said that this movie kind of acts as a time capsule so that we can remember the fact that this format, VHS, changed everything. It completely changed the landscape of film because it added the fact that you can watch these movies at home. Like, that changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of that is insane. There were so many films that you could not see. Just think of all the foreign films that you could not see. Because I had this thought a couple months back when I watched Gene Dealman, 3.5 hours long. And to think that when people saw this movie, you were trapped in a theater and you had to sit there for 3.5 hours and watch this. I got to do it at home where I could pause it anytime I wanted and smoke a cigarette and take a bathroom break. It's completely different.
Absolutely. So Rewind This, check that out. Then I believe you saw Loves Her Gun.
Indeed. That's where I was while you guys were watching Rewind This.
Yes.
This is the sophomore effort from Jeff Marslet, who did a little indie movie, a rotoscoped film called Mars with Mark Duplass. This is, I pretty much guess it's a entirely Austin production, like an Austin filmmaker and everything. Could be wrong, not sure. But a little indie movie about a woman who is attacked. She's living in New York City. She's attacked. She's mugged. So she decides to go with a group of friends to Austin, thinking that it would be more laid back, maybe get away from the paranoia and the fear from the attack that she suffered in New York City. But she finds out that when she gets to Austin, that she's exactly the same. She's just as scared as ever. She's just as paranoid, always looking over her shoulder. But in Texas, she gets herself into the Texas's gun culture, and she ends up getting herself a gun for a means to feel safe. And then it sort of explores, some of the effects and how they take her toll on her. I don't want to give too much away. I mean, it builds up a while until she actually gets the gun, and I just sort of leave it at that. It was solid performances all around, and I would definitely check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see this as soon as I can. Then we have Computer Chess. This, I don't know if you've been looking anything. Have you been looking up anything on this movie, Kevin? This is getting quite a bit of buzz. Like, people are really liking this movie a lot.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we weren't too keen on this. I get what they were doing. I think that it was a clever idea. So the premise is the film takes place in the early 80s, and it's shot in black and white. It's at a computer chess tournament where programmers have their computers face one another in a chess match to see who will reign supreme. And it's a comedy, but it's a very, very dry.
Very dry.
Very dry comedy. And they put in a lot of really weird stuff. There are a few things that I want to say that I did like about it. All the title cards that would come up, I liked. I liked the kind of VHS style to it. And I will say that this movie looked like it was made in the 80s. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they nailed it.
I think they used like an old Sony video camera, I think is what I read. That's what they used.
They nailed it. I remember when I first heard about this movie, I didn't know anything about it at all. I thought that it was actually a documentary about computer chess, because the first clips that came out, there wasn't any dialogue or anything like that. It was just kind of like just video clips.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, oh, it must be like a documentary about this tournament back in the 80s. And then after you see the movie, of course, you realize like, oh, it's not. It's kind of poorly acted, and it's kind of poorly thrown together. And it didn't, I think it ended up just not working for us. However, I think that there is an audience for it.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely an audience for it. And, I mean, there's going to be like a cult audience. There's going to be a very devoted fan base for this film.
Yeah,
I can definitely see that. And like you said, he nailed everything. It looks like there was a legit staff member of the chess tournament who had a video camera and filmed all this.
And
like
there were
everyone nailed it.
Yeah. I think in the end it just wasn't for us, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just the environment that we were in, but I was left wanting more. I thought that it had so much potential that seemed to be squandered. So
yeah, for me, I can definitely see people loving this film.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's the greatest thing they've ever seen, which is completely fine. It just, like you said, it wasn't for me. I liked what he was doing, the aesthetic that he was going for, but it just didn't work for me.
No, and in the end, I just didn't find it to be that funny. I thought some of the jokes worked, but for the most part, I didn't really connect with a lot of the humor.
No.
Then I want to talk about The Retrieval. Now, you did get a chance to see this, right?
I did, because I was going to review it, and when I went to review it...
Beat you to the punch.
You already did it.
This is a beautifully shot film. I was kind of blown away by the visuals in this
Same here.
In this movie. This takes place during the Civil War, and it's about a young boy and his uncle who are bounty hunters. And they are charged with going to retrieve a guy to bring him back to be executed, most likely.
Pretty much.
Not even most likely. I think they even flat out say in the movie, bring him back alive so we can kill him.
Yeah.
This was very good. This did win. What's the term?
It was like the grand jury recognition for acting, something like that.
Yeah, it did win that at South by. I thought the performances were pretty good. I didn't think the kid was amazing.
I thought he did a very good job playing off of Deshaun Scott's character Nate, who is the one that they're essentially getting to take back and kill.
Yeah.
I thought he held his own.
Yeah, I wasn't blown away by his performance, but I thought everybody else was great. And I mean, it is kind of a slow film. There's not a lot of action or anything like that, but I did think that was interesting how they did it, because I mean, this is obviously a low budget film, even though it looks amazing. It is a low budget film, but how they kind of portrayed the Civil War, like how you knew that it was happening right by them, because you could always hear the cannon fire. And then there's a particular scene where they get real close to the action, which I don't want to give anything about that away because it's kind of a big scene in the movie, but I really like how they handled that, and how it's essentially a movie that takes place during the Civil War, but it's not necessarily about the Civil War.
No, I mean, it really has nothing to do with the Civil War. It's just they use that as a backdrop.
Yes, exactly. So I think I can definitely see some Spirit Award nominations in this movie's horizon. It seems like this movie would be right up their alley.
Yeah, without a doubt, and especially for Deshaun Scott. I mean, I completely agree. After seeing this movie, I completely agree with that. The acting award. I thought he was fantastic in it. And the weird thing is he was also in Computer Chess.
Was he?
Yeah, he was in both. He was like the new age.
Oh yeah, the teacher
therapy couple
that shared the meeting room or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't recognize that was him.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I can definitely see him being in a lot more films
Yeah.
in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully he is. I'd like to see him in more things.
I could
'Cause I thought he
definitely
did a
see
great
that.
job in The Retrieval.
Yeah.
And I like to see more from Chris Eska. This was fantastic. And like you said, I mean, most of the film is just them walking through the woods. That's it. But it is shot so beautifully. It's amazing.
I think in my review I compared it to Once Upon a Time in Anatolia or Loneliest Planet.
Yeah, I mean, there's one scene where I think it only lasts like 2, 3 seconds maybe, where they're walking across the field. It's sort of like a wide angle shot, but there's a fog cover over the field. Oh my goodness. That looked amazing.
Yeah. So The Retrieval, check that out. Not sure where they're at as far as distribution yet, but
Hopefully it comes out. This was a gem
yes.
out of a lot of the films that we saw at South by Southwest.
There were 2 other documentaries that I saw that I wanted to briefly mention. The first was Hey Bartender, which is it's a documentary about craft cocktails and the kind of growing popularity of bartending and cocktail bartending specifically.
Yeah, definitely resurgence.
Now, when I first heard about this movie, I actually kind of thought it was going to be like about big time bartenders that enter those competitions where they do like the flips and the crazy tricks and stuff. It's not about that at all, which I was very glad that it wasn't about that. They touch on it really briefly. I mean, like really briefly, but it's mostly about the bartenders that take the job very seriously and are extremely passionate about their work. And I do recommend this movie, even if you're not like a huge cocktail kind of guy or girl. It's very interesting. Kind of follows 2 main characters. One is an apprentice at Employees Only, which is like one of the biggest cocktail bars in New York City. And the other guy owns a bar called Dunville's, and he's kind of struggling to keep his bar afloat. Like his house is in foreclosure. So it's 2 bartenders, but they both have very different lives. And the interesting thing is like these guys are really likable. Like you're really rooting for them to succeed. They all have really interesting stories, and that's what really makes this movie worth watching is just the 2 main characters.
Now, what's your favorite cocktail? Do you have?
I don't have one.
You don't have one? Do you have one after watching this film?
I will say that this movie really made me want a cocktail because the way that they present it throughout the movie, they show it's not just the 2 guys, they get a ton of people, like super famous bartenders. I mean, they even talked to the girl that created the Appletini, for God's sake.
Wow.
So they get all these really famous, I'd even call them like celebrity bartenders, to make their kind of signature drinks. And the way that they film it is really cool. And it makes you want to drink for sure. But to answer your question, no, I don't have a favorite cocktail. I like to mix it up. I try all different types.
Now, was there one from this film that you're like, damn, I've never had that, but I need to have that?
They do get into some of the really crazy stuff that people do, and I don't know if I think they did name most of the drinks, but there was a couple that looked so odd. Like there was this one where he put eggs in it, and it like rose. It looked like a glass of milk, but it like rose up above the top of the glass, and it was just so weird looking. Like a lot of them use like dry ice and all kinds of weird.
So they start getting into like molecular drinks and all that stuff.
A little bit. They don't really talk about it too much, but they show some of the really weird stuff that they do. But it's mostly just about making a good cocktail. Like they don't really get into the theatrics of it and stuff. In fact, a lot of the people that they interview kind of poo-poo that and be like, yeah, you can do all this crazy stuff, but if it's going to take you 10 minutes to make a drink, nobody's going to want that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I go to a bar, I mean, it takes long enough to get a damn drink at a bar. And the second you got to sit through 10 minutes of him flipping bottles up and down, it's
Yeah.
like, I just want a drink. Just give me a cocktail so I can get back to my friends.
Yeah, but I highly recommend it. It's very entertaining. And then the other one is And Who Taught You to Drive? This is a documentary about driving, learning how to drive. But the interesting thing is it's three people that are transplants in whatever country they're in. So we have an American in Tokyo, we have a German in India, Mumbai, and then we have a Korean in Germany. And these are all people that moved there for whatever reason, and they decided that they need to be able to get a license and drive. And it's just about the cultural differences with driving and the lessons and how they go about getting a license and that type of thing, and just how different it is.
Oh yeah, I mean it's extremely interesting. When I started the job that I'm at now, I started the same day as one of my coworkers is Indian, and he always tells me about driving in India, and it's just amazing what he tells me. It's just pure insanity.
Yeah, one thing that I learned from this movie is I would never want to ever drive in India.
Yeah, like they don't have lights, stop signs, nothing.
Yeah, it's just chaos.
It's just a free for all. And the fact that he tells me that if you get in an accident with someone, you're allowed to beat them up until they give you money. And if the cops come, the cops will help you beat them up until you get your money.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh my goodness. I'd be scared to death.
Like Hey Bartender, the thing that this movie really had going for it was the three main characters. They were all very likable characters, and a lot of the movie just kind of followed their personal lives as much as it did them taking the driving lessons and that type of thing. So with a movie like this, it was really important that we like the people that we're watching, and we really did. And I like movies that take place in other countries and explore different cultures. And the way that they did this, we essentially got to explore the different cultures of India and Tokyo, and I think it was Berlin, if I'm not mistaken, but how they were able to explore those cultures through the act of learning how to drive. I thought it was kind of fresh and fun. It's a very light documentary.
All right.
But
seems interesting.
So that was our South by Southwest slate. Overall, I would say it was a great festival.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean I want to give a shout out to all the people, all the volunteers, and all the crew. Like we mentioned in the last episode, we did have Ryan with us, and they were very accommodating. So it was a good time.
Yeah, they made it a lot easier for us.
Yeah,
and for him.
Yeah,
we appreciate greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I think that does it for that. Let's move on and talk about some predictions. Now we don't have any to go over since we were at the festival last week, so we're just gonna predict what's coming out next week. First up, we have the Croods. The Croods.
The Croods.
What are you thinking on this? What are you thinking on this bad boy?
The Croods. 52.
52, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very good to me, so I'm going to say like a 46. And we have Admission. That's the new Paul Rudd, Tina Fey comedy. I'm going to say, I like Paul Rudd, I like Tina Fey. It seems like it could be funny, but I don't think it'll be very well received. Could be wrong. I'm going to say 56. Ooh, wait. Yeah, I'll say 56.
I'm going to go to 52 again.
I was going to change it to a lower number, but I decided to stick with it.
It sounds like I might be going straight 52s.
And then we have Olympus Has Fallen. This is the Antoine Fuqua action.
Great.
Action. Basically, it looks like Die Hard in the White House.
Yeah, that everyone's been clamoring for that.
What do you think? 52 on this one?
I was thinking 52, but I don't want to give him too much credit here, so I'm going to drop that down to like a 40.
40, okay. I'll say 42 on that one. That's it for wide releases. DVD and Blu Ray releases for Tuesday, March 19th. Got a good number. We have Bachelorette finally coming out. I feel like that came out like a long time ago. I don't know why. It's just...
Yeah,
I think it was because it was one of those on-demand ones. Just felt like it's been out for a long time. What are you thinking on The Bachelorette? You going to recommend that?
No, I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch it. I have no interest in it whatsoever.
I've seen it. I mean, we talked about it before on the show. Did we have Ryan watch that? Or did he
we did.
Did we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We had him watch Bachelorette for Bachelorette.
Oh, okay. He liked it. I remember he liked it. And then we have The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Gonna give this bad boy a watch?
I still got to do the first 3 Lord of the Rings. Well, the only 3 Lord of the Rings.
Well, The Hobbit's a prequel. So
The Hobbit is the prequel.
You gonna start with The Hobbit and then?
No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna stick with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And if I can handle any more Middle Earth and orcs and whatever, maybe I'll watch The Hobbit.
I think that I'm with you on this because I've seen part of the first Lord of the Rings, but I fell asleep. So I think I'm gonna set out to watch all 3 of them this year as well, and we can discuss.
Should be wild ride.
It sounds like it's gonna be incredibly wild. And we have Rust and Bone. This ended up on both of our top 10s last year. We both loved this movie. So
yeah, definitely check that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. Loved it. Zero Dark 30. I would also recommend checking that out.
I would as well.
Les Miserables. See, with this movie, odds are if you haven't seen it, you're not. It's not for you.
Nope.
Because I feel like with a movie like that, you have the diehard fans and then people that don't like it. It's like those are it. There's really nobody in the middle.
No, I can't imagine there's anyone that's like, maybe I'll check that out.
Yeah. So
you had to see it by now if you wanted to.
I mean, the only thing that I might say is there might be some cool special features and stuff on the Blu-ray. I don't know. And then finally, This Is 40, the Judd Apatow,
extended cut. I hope there's an extended cut.
It's like 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's just the theatrical version.
Yeah.
Since he doesn't use an editor ever.
I did like this movie, but it is long.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it as well, but he needs an editor, or at least an editor with a backbone.
He needs to...
Seriously, Apatow,
yeah,
you need to cut this out. There's no reason for it to be in here.
Yeah, I think the movie's like 2.5 hours long. It's just like so much.
Yeah, and there's so many
unnecessary.
There's so many scenes where you're just like, why is that there? What does this add to the story?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
I do recommend renting it though, because it is funny. I think it's worth seeing just for the conversation between Paul Rudd and Lena Dunham and Chris O'Dowd.
Yes, that and again, Albert Brooks in this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed him.
Yeah, him and his relationship with his very young children.
We're going to play a game called Murder.
Any other releases, Criterion or otherwise?
We have 2 Criterions coming out, Blu-rays. 2 Blu-rays going on. The first one is a Terrence Malick, Badlands, from 1973. Of course, that sort of catapulted him onto the scene with starring none other than Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek.
Oh boy!
I still haven't seen this movie. Maybe it's about time I do that.
I'm not interested.
I'm not a huge Malick fan.
I'm not interested.
I'll check it out sometime. Maybe like 4 years from now. And then the second one is what's considered to be the finest British film ever made, The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp by Powell and Pressburger, which I've been wanting to see this for a long time because I hear about it constantly, and how great it is. So, again, I think it's about time I check out this film.
There you go. Well, I think that wraps it up. For all the latest film news and reviews, visit us at filmpulse.net. We want to hear your feedback. Send us an email, feedback@filmpulse.net, or call our voicemail line at 850-391-6071. Also, please take a minute to rate us on iTunes. We appreciate that very much. For filmpulse.net, my name is Adam.
I'm Kevin.
And we will see you on Wednesday for Ryan Watches a Movie.
Keep it.